Welcome back to Talking About Stuff. I'm your host, Evan.
And I'm your co-host, Jacob.
So what are we talking about today, Jacob?
Today we're going to be talking about the bank heist that happened a few weeks back and the jewelry heist that happened quite recently, actually.
When was the jewelry heist?
This was, I think, maybe 2 days ago at around 3:15
a.m. or p.m.?
p.m.
Where was it?
It was at the Colony Center Mall.
As you know, I am a former Direct Evo, Office Evo, Cop Evo.
And anyways, so I was shopping at the mall when all of a sudden I heard an alarm going off. Very, very, very loud. Right?
Yeah.
We didn't know what it was at first, so we kept on shopping. But it didn't stop for a while, so we started concerned. We went down to where we heard the noise coming from.
You can talk to me.
And it was a jewelry store, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of weird because it was right by the entrance to the place.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a bad place to put a jewelry store in the first place. Right?
Yeah, honestly, that's just easy to rob.
Yeah, right.
That's easy sauce.
So, I saw a bunch of cops standing outside of the front entrance to this place. And there was, a lady inside that was, crying. And you know, in a, movie sometimes, it'll be, a witness to it will be, having, a towel around them and be, crying and, reciting what was happening.
Honestly, I understand that, but also, if you see a bank getting robbed, and I don't think it's a personal thing, I don't think you should be like, they took my favorite ring.
I don't know, man. But the weird thing is that a few weeks prior to that, 2 weeks or so before that, there was a bank heist that happened pretty close to it, less than, 3 minutes away. Right, a 3-minute drive away.
But yeah, it wasn't where was it? It was at the mall in Colony, right? The first one? The jewelry store?
The jewelry store happened after the bank robbery.
Yeah, and then the bank is also in Colony, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of by,
McDonald's? Is it the Bank of America?
Nah, it's not the Bank of America. I think
it's the green one?
Nah, it's called TD Bank, but not many people have heard of it. It's a small bank that's, kind of, by the KFC.
Yeah, audience member. What do you want?
So, Jacob, that's an interesting hat you're wearing. Is that made from, a dead Wookiee?
This is actually my hair right here. But anyway, back to the other talk.
Yeah.
So, it happened, 2 weeks or so before, right?
Yeah.
Before this robbery. And if you think about it, it all kind of adds up, right? So if this guy was desperate, which he probably was if he's robbing a bank.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All people who rob banks are, desperate for money. They need food to live. Everyone needs food and water, but, sometimes you can't afford it because things are really expensive nowadays.
Yeah. So, this is my theory on it, okay?
Yeah.
So, the guy only ended up getting, I'll get to you in a second. The guy only ended up getting, $500 from this heist, which can only last for, a few weeks in today's economy.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes sense that he uses that money for the next 2 weeks and lets the robbery die down a little bit, right? Just to go hit the jewelry store where he can make more money to have money for the rest.
Yeah.
Before I keep going. Yes, audience member?
Are you sure there isn't a dead poodle on your head?
Yeah.
And,
anyway, cut for a second. We are going to take a quick break really quickly. Yeah, Dad?
Hey, have you seen my phone, my work phone?
What color is it?
Black.
No, I haven't. It's not down here.
Jacob, you hear that sound?
What? The app?
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay.
Alright, so, 3, 2, 1.
And we're back. So, anyway,
Yeah.
it would make sense, just as a little recap, it would make sense that after getting that $500, he let it die down for a week, used that money, right? He let it die down for 2 weeks, used that money during those 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and went back to get more money at the jewelry store, right?
Yeah,
And
that doesn't make sense, because,
there's no video footage of who the bank robber was, right? Because in the video, he's wearing a baseball cap and a hood and a COVID mask, right?
Yeah.
So you can't see his face.
Yeah.
And I presume you couldn't see the guy's face in the jewelry heist, but they did get fingerprints. They ended up getting the guy's DNA.
Okay, so, honestly, that would make sense, because they were, 3 weeks apart?
2 or 3 weeks, yes.
And $500 at max
In today's economy.
could probably last you 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
So the time frame does add up, and the closeness adds up. So your theory does have some serious potential. Yes, audience member.
Did you do, any research on this?
Actually, yes. I've done extensive research.
You said 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, well
You
that
don't
was
even know the number of weeks.
well that I didn't have to research because I know how time works, right? It was 2 to 3 weeks.
I know,
Alright.
but couldn't you just like double check how long it was?
Anyway, okay, so after school this one day, right? I was taking the bus home, and we this one kid on the bus. I'm gonna dox him. He lives by the. And we have to make a turn to go in that direction. And there were a bunch of cops that were blocking the area there, right? And it would make sense that they were setting up a search perimeter for the jury heist, right?
Yeah.
Amongst other things that may have gone down there, right?
Yeah.
And in my theory, I think that the guy actually has a safe house at Colony Towers, right? Because it's in that same kind of area, and a lot of random people like live there.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. There's a bunch of people that live in the town.
Right, and I feel like you don't really need like a ton of money to live there, you know? So it would make sense if a guy's desperate, he's living at the Colony Towers, right? It's in that same kind of location. The cops are guarding that area. It just kind of adds up, you know?
Yeah, it does. So yesterday, there was a bit of a traffic jam on a neighborhood by Colony. We were driving by, and we got stuck for a while. But the traffic was like, it was just nonstop for like 10 minutes, and we heard like sirens, and I could have like, we heard a motorcycle backfire, which I thought was gunshots, but then a few minutes later, we heard, and then we heard, woo, so we heard like shots and then like a cop car go by. So that was just kind of interesting.
So when I got dropped off of the bus after all this happened, right? 1 second, sir. I ended up having to walk home because my father wasn't there to pick me up, right? So, I heard sirens behind me, right? And I saw like 5 police cars in a fleet just like blow past my neighborhood. And then I started to run. And if you remember, I actually called you because I was kind of nervous, right? And I started telling you what happened.
So I think I know what happened though. So, 1 second, audience member. So they were looking for the guy, but there was this gnarly car accident where the top of a truck got ripped off. By the way, this is a true story. We drove past it, but like there were 2 people just standing right outside of but there was a big truck outside of school, and it was flipped on its side, and the top was just completely torn off. And there were 2 people just standing by the fence on their phone, in like sweats and stuff.
Yes, audience member?
What does this have to do with anything?
Well, he's just explaining what all this traffic and the sirens were about.
Yes,
I wasn't aware.
But why did you bring it up if it has nothing to do with
Well,
anything?
I thought that it was connected. He's not telling me that it wasn't.
Yeah, well, we don't know that because they could have still been looking for the guy because it only was a day later.
Yeah.
So it still does have.
I see like cop cars and ambulances.
Yeah, but
almost
I'm
every
talking
day.
like
Could've
there were.
been anything.
But I'm talking there were like a lot, and there were like roadblocks.
Yeah. And like the neighborhood that we were on, it barely has any traffic ever. And there were like maybe 10, 15 cars in like the same area. And they were just like, they just kept coming.
Anywho. So, with all of the things that we've talked about, I think it's good to wrap up the show now, right?
I do believe so. So that concludes today's episode about talking about stuff. We will see you next time. Cue the outro.
I do crack. Hold on, sound a little fucked up. I do crack. Yeah, I do crack. I do crack. I do see a crack. I don't even know how to spell crack, but I do it. You wanna know why? Cause I be waking up in the morning, I be finding my pipe, I be ready to bite, I be ready to fight. I do crack, I do crack, I do crack, I do crack, I do meth, I do snorting the coke, and everybody knows that I am on coke, cause I will shoot for no reason. I'm a crackhead, I got arrested 3 times for treason. 3 times for treason. for no fucking reason.